So today we're going to talk about uncovering the silent. Silent about what, you may say. Let me ask you something most leaders never get asked. When did you start becoming who you are today? Most people answers with a title, a career milestone, an identity they've grown into. But the truth is, who we are didn't start at the top. It started long before we were conscious of being shaped. Some of us were taught that love had conditions, that safety came with silence, that achievement meant approval, and mistakes meant shame. Not because our parents were bad, not because anyone intended harm, but because generations passed down what they didn't have words for. Here's what I've learned, both personally and in coaching leaders around the world. You can be thriving on the outside while still operating from outdated scripts on the inside. I've sat with high achievers, CEOs, creatives, founders, who realize in the middle of a coaching session, I'm not leading from today, I'm leading from survival patterns I've developed at age 7. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's a good thing, because that's where healing begins. Not with blame, not with shame, but with awareness, with the courage to look inward at the patterns we didn't choose but still carry. Because before we can lead with intention, we have to see what's driving us, the scripts we inherit. Let's talk about something that doesn't show up in your KPIs, but shapes everything about how you lead, connect, and grow. Your internal programming, the survival scripts you've carried for years, maybe since childhood, often invisible, but always running in the background. Many high performers I work with aren't driven by vision. They're compelled by survival, not in the physical sense, but emotionally, psychologically. I once coached a founder who built a $40 million company, publicly adored, internally exhausted. Every success came with a quiet voice inside that said, "You better keep going or you lose everything." We trace it back to the childhood. A parent who withheld love unless she excelled. So her brilliance became her armor, her achievements a cry for approval. Not because she was broken, but because she was conditioned. And that's what so many of us carry. Scripts from childhood that sounds like, don't show weakness. If you rest, you'll fall behind. If they really knew you, they'd leave you. Love is earned, never guaranteed. These beliefs don't show up on your to-do list. They live deeper than that in your nervous system, in your calendar, in the way you expect others to show up, in the guilt you feel when you try to pause. And if you've never questioned them, you might assume this is just how life is. But the truth is, it's not. It's just how your early world was wired. And it's been running on autopilot ever since. But here's the truth. Your leadership, your relationship, your peace, they all deserve an upgrade. Not through more pressure, but through more awareness. Let me start with something few high achievers hear often enough. Your patterns aren't a flaw. They're evidence of your brilliance. They were built to keep you safe, successful, steady. They help you to navigate unpredictable dynamics, early disappointments, or emotional terrain no child should have had to decode. But here's the catch. What was once protecting you can slowly turn into a role you keep playing, even when it's no longer needed. It becomes automatic, like wearing armor in a room where no one's attacking you. You start leading not from who you are, but from who you think you need to be to stay safe. One executive I worked with had the fixer script, the one who stepped in, hold it together, anticipated everyone's needs before they were spoken. At work, this made him invaluable until it made him invisible. He was needed but not seen, because the fixer rarely asks for help, rarely sets boundaries, rarely stops. During one session, he said something that hit hard. I'm exhausted, but I don't know how to let anyone else hold things without guilt. That's not a capacity issue. That's an emotional programming. Early on, he had to become the adult in the room. And the pattern, unchallenged, became the leader he learned to be today. So the principle, all behavior makes sense when you understand the environment it was built in. That's why we don't shame your patterns at We Flourish. We study them, we trace them, we honor what they did for you, and then we decide consciously if they still serve you now. Because if your leadership is still rooted in old survival scripts, you'll keep growing but never feel safe enough to rest, to receive, to let go. And growth without rest, that's not success, that's erosion, slowly wearing down the parts of you that are supposed to last. So what's the real barrier? It's not your ambition, it's not your pace, it's what's happening beneath all of that. The stuff you don't even realize is running the show. Your pattern isn't the enemy. Your unawareness of the pattern is. And once you see it, everything starts to shift. Because when something's unconscious, you can't choose it, you just repeat it. I once worked with a brilliant female leader who couldn't celebrate wins. Every milestone was met with, okay, what's next? She thought it was ambition. But when we slowed down, she realized celebrating had always been dangerous in her household. Joy made you vulnerable. So she taught herself to move quickly, past it. She wasn't just chasing success, she was bypassing presence. The principle? Well, the nervous system doesn't ask if a pattern is helpful. It just asks if it's familiar. And when the pattern is unexamined, it leaks. It leaks into how you manage, how you lead meetings, how you hear feedbacks, how you relate to the rest, connection, conflict, celebrations. So here's the real opportunity. When you become aware of the script, you reclaim your power to edit it. Not by force, not by shame, but by choice. That's what we do at Flourish. We don't just optimize your outer world, your calendar, your communication, your strategy. We help you realign your inner world so that everything you touch, your team, your tone, your timing, reflects more clarity, more spaciousness, more truth. Because freedom doesn't come from doing more. It comes from leading without outdated baggage, from not dragging old fears into new rooms. And that brings me to something high achievers say all the time. Healing is not a detour, it's the fastest way forward. I don't have time for healing, I have things to build. I hear this constantly. But here's the truth, healing isn't a detour from growth. It's the foundation that makes growth sustainable. Without it, we build fast, but we build on shaky grounds. Without healing, your leadership becomes reactive. Your boundaries blur. So your peace depends on other people behaving themselves. Your worth feels tied to output. But when you do the inner work, you don't just lead better. You breathe differently. You decide differently. You connect differently. I had a client say this after 3 months of work. I thought I was tired, but I was exhausted from decades of needing to prove I mattered. What's the shift? He didn't build more, he built from better alignment. That's the part no one teaches us in leadership training. That the inner work isn't about weakness, it's about wiring your life around clarity, capacity, and compassion. Because healed leaders don't lead from urgency, they lead from vision. They don't push to be seen, they choose to be grounded. And their teams feel the difference. At We Flourish, this is what we guide leaders through. We create space where healing becomes the strategy, where clarity becomes contagious, and where new levels of leadership begins. Different paths, same pattern. So let's zoom out for a moment. Not all high performers are driven by proving it to themselves. Not all are fixers or the ones who hold it all together for everyone else. The scripts we carry come in many forms, but they all point to the same truth. Unexamined beginnings quietly shape our present. Some of us lead from hyper-independence because depending on anyone else, used to be dangerous. So now, even in success, we isolate, we control, we struggle to receive. Others lead from perfectionism, because the only way to feel safe growing up was to be flawless. So now, we double-check everything, hold others to impossible standards, and criticize ourselves even in silence. Some lead with relentless productivity, not because they love the grind, but because slowing down feels like failure. Like if we stop, everything might fall apart. And some of us, we lead from invisibility, always supporting, always holding space for others, but afraid to take up too much room ourselves. These are all different roads, but they often lead to the same moment, a quiet reckoning. I've built something powerful, but I'm ready to lead from somewhere deeper now. And at that moment, that's not a breakdown, that's an invitation to stop performing the version of you that once kept you safe and start becoming the version of you that feels free. So here's the truth, most high performers don't hear enough. You weren't born to perform, you were born to become. Become whole, become grounded, become someone whose presence is no longer tied to output, but to essence. Your early life may have taught you to earn your worth, to prove your enoughness through success, perfection, and control. But your next chapter, what is it going to be? It doesn't have to be written by those old scripts. It can be written with clarity, by conscious choice, by deep alignment with who you actually are beneath the roles, titles, and expectations. And yes, it takes courage. It takes a lot of work. Because unbecoming the version of you that the world applauds can feel like loss at first. But what comes after? It's peace, power, presence. And at We Flourish, we hold space for this kind of transformation, for the version of success that isn't performative. It's personal, it's sustainable, it's free. So if you're ready to stop carrying patterns that no longer serves you and start leading from the deepest part of who you are, then I welcome you. You don't have to do it alone. This is the work, this is the invitation. Not to fix yourself, but to finally meet yourself. Let's flourish differently.